Well, if you've watched one of my character pitch videos before, you already know that I showcase how League characters could work in projectl if they were to borrow key abilities and influences from existing fighting game characters. But for today's choice, we'll be showcasing a champion who takes that idea even further. One who quite literally hijacks the magical abilities of those around him to use as his own, and in fact, even got his own game centered around that very concept. But while we're at it, it's also important to note that Sylas isn't exactly an innovator for that idea either. In fact, there's an entire subclass of fighting game characters known for their copy-paste borrowing of other fighter abilities. And no, I don't mean the full-on cloning type either. For my money, League already has a much better choice for that particular version. Instead, for this video's sake, we'll be crafting a variation of what's called a composite character. Composite characters are defined as characters whose movesets are taken directly from other existing characters from their respective game rosters. But to be more specific, there are examples of this that rather than being composed of other characters' moves by default, they instead have their own tools to work with and can manually steal additional moves from their opponents, much like the unshackled mage himself. So with that established and this core idea in mind, let's see if we can piece together an entire 2D fighter kit for Sylas in projectl. To start things off, we'll need a way to get the party going and give Sylas his ability to steal powers from his victims. For his projectl self, I say that rather than being locked behind his ultimate ability as it is in League, we instead make it much more accessible to use freely and able to steal minor abilities more akin to his Mage Seeker version. My pitch here, give him a command grab at close range to take said defining abilities from his target. Whether that be a fireball from those pesky zoners, a higher damaging command grab from those actual grapplers, or any other number of unique abilities from across the entire roster. Then, as a secondary method to charge up, we can have Sylas steal these abilities from the background too by having a hijacking themed assist, stealing away from the sideline so he can come in already powered up and ready to go once he gets tagged in. And yes, it's important to note that much like his League of Legends self, the power level of Sylas' ability steal would very much depend on who he happens to be borrowing from. But to me, that's exactly what makes it interesting, and there's just something so satisfying about defeating your opponent with their very own attack. Moving right along, I'll assure you not to worry, stealing powers from others isn't the only defining trait for our old pal Sylas. He does also have a knack for putting those prison shackles to good use, both in combat and for mobility. We'll start on some direct carryover from League with Abscond/Abduct. It's a two-part ability where you can dash in a direction, then recast to have Sylas throw his chains out and pull himself to his opponent's location, which of course works to give him an impressive amount of gap closing potential. But here I'm leaning more on just that second part. Give Sylas his ability to chain dash to his opponents, acting as a great way to close the gap and of course deal damage on impact. But then also give it the added bonus of zipping around the play space for added maneuverability even when it doesn't connect to another champion. Then while we're at it, just to go nuts, allow him to use it in the air to further zip around like a madman. Up next, Chain Lash in League acts as a solid ranged poke to slow and set up a full-on attack if Sylas so chooses, but instead looks to me like a clear candidate for an overhead attack in projectl due to its visible up to down trajectory. And it could also work as Sylas' second assist attack. Then, to complement the overhead Chain Lash, we could give a chain sweep attack similar to this bit from the Warrior cinematic, going low and knocking your opponent down so you can go for an ability steal grab, or whatever else you choose to pressure your opponents with as they get back up. Up next, and moving into something completely different for Sylas, we could give him a brand new ability to hit grounded opponents. It would see him making use of those prison bindings once more to handcuff his opposition to himself for a short duration, allowing for some crazy combo potential if you manage to break their guard again. Moving on outside his spectrum of shackle abilities, we also bring in Kingslayer from League 2. For its MOBA form, it sees Sylas dashing forward to not only damage his target, but also heal Sylas a bit in the process. But for his fighter version, I think I'll change it around a bit to steer away from that healing effect, and instead borrow Soul's Fafnir to give Sylas a chunky hitting dash punch that has the added bonus of damaging victims even when they block it. Which finally brings us to his 3 meter burning ultimate abilities. For his first level 1, I propose a harder impact Chain Lash that hits his opponents on the ground for a perfect combo ender. Second level 1 could function as an install similar to Unshackled mode from Mage Seeker that sees Sylas get empowered normal attacks for a short duration, and maybe even gain access to some familiar new abilities that are relevant to his lore. Then finally for his level 2 we could showcase the return of Hijack proper from League, showing a flash of Sylas stealing the ultimate from his opponent, then cut to Sylas attacking them with their very own cinematic ultimate finisher. And that's my pitch for Sylas in projectl. Let me know what you thought of it and what other champions you want to see make it into Riot's fighting game in the comments section down below. Thanks so very much as always for watching, and I'll catch you on the next video.